Welcome, audio sorcerers, wizards, and gurus to my channel. I'm Dan Spencer, and I am the Audio Sorcerer. So this is the channel where I teach you how to fetch out recording, mixing, and mastering skills. So in today's video, we're talking about the new Waves Kaleidoscopes plugin. And this plugin has several different effects all built into one. So it has a phaser, it has a flanger, it has tremolo, and it has chorus. And it has two modules, so you can basically use it in parallel or serial with each other. So it's pretty cool. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys what it sounds like on a guitar picking part. And we're going to use several different presets with this plugin so you can hear how all the different sounds work with each other and such. And I'm also going to give you a full tutorial on what all of the parameters do in the plugin. But before we get to the video, I do want to remind you guys that I offer mixing and mastering services. If you go to audiosorcerer.com, you can check out my samples and my rates and I give 20% off to new customers. All you gotta do is sign up for that email list. If you guys end up liking this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when I have new videos coming out. So with that being said, let's get to this tutorial. Alright, so here we are in Pro Tools, and today we are talking about the Waves Kaleidoscopes. This plugin has several different effects in one. It has a phaser, a flanger, a chorus, and a tremolo. And you can actually have two of these in here. As you can see, this is one and this is the second one. And we'll go over all that more in detail here in a second. But what this tutorial is going to be for is basically how to learn how to use this plugin, what all the parameters do, and also hear what it sounds like on a guitar picking part. Because when I hear things like phaser, flanger, chorus, and tremolo, I automatically jump right to a guitar picking part, at least in my head. Now, this plugin would be great on vocals, it would be great on drums. You probably heard like drum effects where you hear like the whole entire kit in this weird kind of, flangery sound, or maybe just the snare drum. And that's usually maybe like at the beginning of the song before everything kicks in. You can use this plugin for that. It's not uncommon to hear a phaser on vocals throughout a whole song of pop music. You just kind of bear it in there. It gives it kind of this little extra effect that makes it sound a little bit bigger. So again, this plugin can be used for a bunch of different things. Now, this plugin's effects sound great, and I think what sets it apart from other, flangers and phasers and stuff like that is that you get this all in one, and you get basically two of these all in one here, which is pretty cool. So with that being said, let's look at this plugin here, the GUI here, and I'll show you what all the different parameters do. All right, so starting at the top here, above each module, these are your visual graphs of what's actually happening. So it's kind of cool. They're color coded, of course. So this is orange here, this is orange down here, this is blue, and this is blue up here. These little balls are going to move around on this frequency spectrum, letting you know what's actually happening with the effect. So you're never going to have to guess. This will show you in real time what is going on. So that's definitely pretty cool. And then below our graphs here, we have our two modules. And we'll just go over one of them because they're pretty much the same. But this is your power button here. When it is lit up in white, that means it's on. If it's not lit up, then of course it's off. And then over here you have your four different effects. You have phaser, flanger, chorus, and tremolo. And as you can see, the colors change when you select them. And I'm all about color coding, so that's pretty cool. And below that you have your modulator section. And this allows you to pick the shape of your modulation here. So this will affect the waveform. And these are your different options within here. And then next to that, you have your character, and you have 5 different options. And this basically affects the tonality of the filter options. So it's going to basically affect how what you select in here sounds. So keep that in mind. And then here you have the sync option here, which is currently grayed out because this only works on particular modulation shapes. So if I was to put this onto sine, you would see that I'm able to enable it now. And what this does is it basically syncs this effect to the tempo of your song. So it can come in handy. And then the through button here, we actually want to have access to in this tutorial because it only works when you're using it on a stereo track or if you're using it in mono to stereo mode. So what it basically does is it allows you to do some extra, I guess you could say, effects or widening and some processing of a stereo signal differently than just the plugin as is. So again, we want to have access to it in this tutorial. So below that, we have our speed knob. So that is going to affect the rate of how these effects work. And then here you have the resonance knob, which this actually changes depending on which effect you're on. So for flanger, it's feedback. For chorus, it's also feedback. And for tremolo, it's actually grayed out. So, feedback is basically how many repetitions happen after the sound happens. So that's what you need to know for flanger and chorus. And then for the resonance here, the manual basically says that if you set this to a negative value, it uses all pass filters to create negative phaser sounds. But if you set it to positive values, it uses notch filters that boost gain to create positive notch sweeps. So it's a bit like a wah-wah sound. So that's what this little knob does here. And then your mix knob here. So if you're going to be using this directly on a track like we are, so we're using this directly on the guitar track, you're going to want to actually use this knob. So if you are using it on a bus, which you may do for something like vocals, you would want to have this all the way up here. And then of course you will mix it in using your send fader. So keep that in mind. So we'll actually pull this back down for now. And then below that is your depth knob here. So this basically controls the range of your oscillation. And then over here you have your high pass filter and your low pass filter. So you got a little bit of EQ you can do with it here. And then here you have a couple extra EQ controls. These basically affect what frequencies are being sent to the effects here before the effects actually happen. So you can set your min frequency and then also your max frequency. And if you hold them, you can see what frequency it's at. And then you can also affect the Q of how that's being sent. So that is basically what you have in your modules here. And then the only thing left regarding these modules is in the middle here. You can actually swap them like that, which is kind of cool. So you also have an option to run this plugin in serial mode or parallel mode. So the default is serial. So that means that this mix knob here is controlling the blend between the dry and wet signals and then sending it to the second processor here. And then in parallel mode, you don't have an option to swap these anymore, and you'll see that this dry level actually becomes enabled. So what it does now is these level knobs here is how much you're actually sending to the mixer. So you're kind of creating your own blend of these two modules using the level knob here, and then it hits the mixer on the way out. So those are the two different modes that you can run it in. So below each of our modules here, we have a trigger section, one for each of them. And the trigger section affects the audio signal before it actually hits these modules here. And for our trigger options, we have off, which means that these trigger options will do nothing. We have simple, which the plugin is going to wait to exceed the threshold, and that's for all of these last three here. And it says once the signal passes the threshold, movement will begin until the user stops it. And then for retrigger, when the signal falls below the threshold, the movement will end. And then for one shot, after it passes the set threshold, that's the point it completes the defined path and then it stops. So one thing to know about this trigger is that it's not available in random input or sidechain modulators. And again, that's what we would select up here. So it's not available in those modes. So down here you have an option to do either rhythm or energy. So rhythm uses detected transients to trigger the signal. So this can be typical as doing like a side chain when you're using the kick drum to trigger something to happen, like an 808 per se, if you make your own 808. And then energy, this acts like a straightforward gate. So any sample that passes above the threshold will trigger the event. And then for listen, this solos the detected signal for the trigger section. This enables you to listen to the detection in order to adjust the settings for the trigger, so that's pretty useful. And then for master, this assigns priority to a trigger when both triggers are activated. And then this allows you to use sidechain here. This is what you would enable if you want to use sidechaining. And then below here, as we talked about your threshold level, you would set that here. Then you also have a high pass and low pass filter for the signal coming in, along with an attack. So that affects, of course, how quickly that this trigger reacts to your sound coming in. And then also a length would be release, which is not currently enabled for this. And then below this, you have your sidechain listen, so you can listen to how the sidechain is working. And then you can also enable your BPM here, make this all synced up to your tempo. Typically, I like to do a lot of my effects based upon my tempo, so I'm going to leave that enabled for now. And then our last section in this plugin is just the mixer section here. So you can actually add some drive to the signal, give it some, saturation. And then you could actually set this to pre or post, which is kind of cool. And then your in and out level. And then as you saw the dry signal, that's a blend between the dry and wet. And that is when you are in parallel mode that this becomes enabled. And then your rotate knobs, these are related to if this plugin is in parallel mode, which it's not currently, but you also have to be using it on a stereo track or in the mono stereo mode. So that is all the parameters of this plugin. And I know it took a little bit of time to get through them all, but there's quite a bit in here. And that leads me to my next point, that using presets built into this is probably going to be your best place to start as opposed to just digging into it, because there's some really good ones in here. And if we go to the load section, you're going to see there are a ton of presets in here. And there's, obviously a lot in here per mix engineer, which is kind of cool. You're going to see that, you have stuff for drums, guitar, synths, vocals, and that's pretty much across the board for a lot of these guys in here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pick a few of these guitar presets and listen to them on this guitar picking part. So let's do that now. So let me let you hear this guitar part first with this bypass so you can hear what it sounds like. Let's give it a listen. All right, so that's basically the gist of it. So why don't we actually hear what this plugin just sounds like on its default when you first open it. Let's give it a listen. So that actually sounds pretty cool right off the bat there. That's a blend of a phaser and a flanger. So let's go in our load section here, and I guess we'll just start at the top. Let's go to guitar, and why don't we try both of these? Let's start with this one. Let's give it a listen. Okay, pretty cool. That is actually two flangers at different rates. As you can see, these are moving at different rates there. So let's do another one. Let's do this one here. Megatone for life. That one's kind of interesting. Actually, obviously kind of faded out as the thing played, which is telling me there's a really slow rate on it. All right, let's see. Let's just pick someone random in here. How about JJP guitars? Let's try As You Are. Let's try another one by him. How about Focus? So I actually really love that preset. I would save that one as a favorite there. That obviously made the guitar sound a little smaller, but it kind of did what it said. It focused it. So I really like that one. Let's see what else we got. How about Makeup? Okay, so that is clearly a chorus sound. It's pretty lush. Actually sounds really good. So let's go to somebody else's effects here now. Let's see. What do we got? How about Dreamy? Do we have any guitars in here? So we don't really know if this is a guitar or not, but we'll try. How about Add in Juice? Let's see what it sounds like. That one sounds like a clown dying. So let's go to a different one. Let's see what else he's got for guitars here. He's got EG Spread. I guess this would probably make him sound wider, but this is in a stereo track, so I don't know if it matters or not, but let's give it a listen. All right, so that effect is a blend between the flanger and chorus. So let's just hear a couple more in here. How about Tony Maserati? He's got some good stuff out there. This one here, this is a 1/16 trigger, or arpeggio guitar. That's my assumption based upon what I'm reading here. That would actually potentially be perfect for our sound. Let's see. It almost has a little bit of that kind of wah-wah sound. It's like wow, wow, if you kind of hear it in there. So, sounds pretty cool. So we'll listen to one more. Let's see if we can pick one more good one here. Let's see what he's got. Acoustic guitar flange. So that could be for picking. Let's give it a listen. Cool. So that one actually sounds pretty good too. So I actually want to go back to focus because I thought that one sounded really good. And I just want to let you guys hear it one more time. So maybe you guys can use it in one of your songs. Yeah, that is a solid preset there. And it is a blend between a phaser and tremolo. And it's not over the top. It's just blended in just nicely enough to, just make it, I bet you would sit fantastic in any mix. And I really love it. So again, this tutorial was focused more on letting you hear what this particular plugin sounds like on a guitar picking part. So we obviously went through several different presets. You got to hear, in many different scenarios what it would it sound like. Obviously we've heard it with phaser, flanger, chorus, and tremolo. We've heard all four of those effects and blended in different ways between those presets. So I'm curious to know what you guys think of this plugin. If you guys like this plugin or you hate it, leave a comment in the section below and let me know. And if you got something out of this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when I have new videos coming out. So with that being said, until the next video, I will see you guys later and peace out.